Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Everyone can hear me. Someone can shout back and say Hari Bol.
Yes,
Hare
Hare
Bol.
Bol.
You're muted, Mother. I think. Okay, I can see one face. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So welcome everyone again. Second class, is that correct? Or third class?
Third class.
Oh, that's why I can't hear because I've got my headphones plugged in. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, everyone. Got my headphones plugged in. Yeah, so welcome to our third class or second class?
Third class.
Third class, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So I got a bit carried away last week. You have to forgive me. I should have finished that chapter, but we got right into it in describing about first symptoms of devotional service at Sadhana Bhakti. So we will finish today, chapter 1, and then next week, for the first half hour, you'll have a little examination on the preface, introduction, and chapter 1. So we're definitely going to finish chapter 1 today. We might move into chapter 2 as well, but let's see how it goes. But before I begin, you remember last week,
There's going to be a graveyard writing today.
I asked if everyone could mute there. There's a few living room voices coming in. So if anyone could share either in the chat or they can unmute and just share something from last week for our edification, just to prompt us, just to remind us of what we discussed last week. You can look at your notes, that's fine. If anyone, I'm just trying, I'm moving a bit. Okay, that's it. I can see the chat now. Okay, anyone can have any, you can say guesstimations, but anyone have any memories going back last week? Can share. You can type away in the chat. Anything at all that we spoke of last week. So just keep in mind that each week I'll be starting with this, so you can perhaps, perhaps keep it in mind at the beginning of, or just after your little test next week, we'll just go over. So.
Oh, no, it's not 1 o'clock. Oh, okay.
So yeah, did I hear a voice out there? So, I mean, no one's saying anything. It means everyone's forgot what we discussed last week. Did anyone take notes? Did anyone take notes? You can look at your notes or look at the slides you have. Okay, someone's put some, yeah, pure devotional service, thank you. That's from Subhodra. Yeah, specifically we described about what is the main verse in Nectar of Devotion, isn't it? Anyabhadasta Samyam. And we got quite into that, describing the primary characteristics and the secondary characteristics. So yeah, we gave you a definition of pure devotional service. Very good. Anything else? Scar up and Tatashta Lakshan. Yeah, I mentioned. So yeah, Surup Lakshan and Tatastha Lakshan. Very good. The primary character, and remember that the primary characteristics, interestingly, are in the last 2 lines of that verse. And the Tatashta, the secondary characteristics, in the first 2 lines. It gives a complete definition of what is pure devotional service. So we're very clear. Yeah, part of that, Vrindavana, thank you, is mentioning that we discussed part of that is pravriti and nivriti. So taken to the path of bhakti means there's certain activities we do and certain activities that we don't do with our body, mind, and words. Yeah, and our body, mind, and words. So the first one, the body, is relatively easy. Then the word, then it gets more subtle. So how to keep our mind in a devotional state. Yeah, so pravriti, nivriti. Let's perhaps have one more. Then we'll do a quick flash review by going over the slides. Tatastha Lakshan, Surup Lakshan, pravritti and navritti. All right, I won't squeeze you too much. So just keep in mind next week, you can take little notes, and next week we can start with a little, just see what we covered last week. Let me just see how many we got today. Hare Krishna. Shyam, Vivek, Anjali, Vrindavana, Prihat, Gaurahari, Karuna, Kamoho. Yeah, okay. Good show. I'm just checking if our brahmacharis are here from our ashram. I'm sure they are out there somewhere. Okay, so let's just very quickly, actually, will be a kind of a quick review. Selection the slide. Yeah, we described about Mangala Charan. Rupa Goswami begins with that. This was the week before. Akila Rasmita Murti. The Nectar of Devotion is focused on Krishna as the reservoir of all rasa. And this nice verse we quoted. This is the beginning of the Bhakti Rasmita Sindhu. Akila Rasmita Murti. That's Krishna. Yeah. We analyze that verse a bit. Very quick. Krishna here is Akila Rasmita Murti, is the reservoir of all rasas. And then we describe this. Remember, we already reviewed this last week. Devotees are compared to sharks. And then in the preface there's a breakdown, again, of the different stages of devotion and the different subjects are speaking about in the 4 oceans of the nectar of devotion. And then we got really into, this is where we spent time last week, the definition of pure devotional service. This is one of your learning verses. So some of you might be already working on memorizing this verse. And Yadalasta Sunyam, very good verse to learn and memorize. And we discussed this last week. So as was mentioned very nicely in the beginning, there's the Tatashta, the Surup Lakshan and the Tatashta Lakshan. Surup Lakshan, it's directly for Krishna. It's an active engagement. It's associated, and remember we discussed how it's not just pleasing, but it's favorable. For instance, the wrestlers Chinora Mustika, but it didn't make it devotional service. Yeah, their intent was to kill Krishna, not to make nice garlands for Krishna or to cook a nice offering to Krishna. They wanted to kill him. So although they please Krishna in a sense of fighting, it's not considered pure devotional service. Then Tatashta Lakshan's secondary characteristics, which are a consequence, should be a consequence of the first one, free from ulterior motives, yeah, as opposed to mostly the worship of demigods. And we discussed that. And we also mentioned the point that remember we had that discussion if a devotee says, "My Lord, please save me." We had a discussion, is that pure devotional service or not? And according to Rupa Goswami's wording, the intrinsic need, the basic intrinsic needs for life and living, food, shelter, and protection, this is all can be contained within pure devotional service because our really intrinsic desire is Krishna. And in this world, intricately, you have to have things and engage in activities. So anyway, devoid of philosophical and fruitive pursuits, devoid of the philosophy of monism. There's no such thing as monism in Krishna consciousness. In pure devotional service, we don't want to merge into Krishna, we want to serve Krishna. And we're not dependent, and fruitive pursuits. Remember we discussed that we're duty bound sometimes to engage in fruitive pursuits, but these could say these other lesser religious type of activities, we understand it's not necessarily going to make us more advanced in devotional service, We do it out of duty. And if we can't attend to these things because we've taken care of Krishna, there's no simple reaction. If you've got any questions, please feel free to put in the chat or just unmute and ask. And then, yeah, so we discussed these word to word, these words. I just gave you a quick synopsis of all of this. So let's skate through these. Anukulyena. These slides are not moving fast enough for me. Okay. Remember we had that discussion. So this is different slides. I use different slides. I changed the slides here. Just had the slide of the battle crew, etc. Krishna means all of Krishna is not alone. Krishna has his associates, etc. His expansions. Okay. And Yabala says Sunyam Gana Kamrit Nabritam. Okay, then we edged into chapter 1. Now we're beginning. We had quite a wonderful beginning. The preface and the introduction are wonderful. Then we're discussing 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. And last week we discussed number 1, which is relief from all material distress. And I gave you a little side note that there's 3 levels of devotion that we will think about again today. Because whenever I make sure they're muted, I can hear someone's family activities there. Okay, let me choose participants and find who's not muted and mute them. It's like playing what is it? Like playing Space Invaders games. Try and find a person who's not muted. Okay, we got it. Okay, so we discussed Kleshagni and the note. Oh, still there. Okay, go down again. Excuse me, I'm just trying to mute someone. Okay. Okay, so there's 2 symptoms that manifest at the steady stage. Let me just go back. There's 3 levels of practice in spiritual life given by Rupa Goswami. There's sadhana bhakti, there's bhava bhakti, and there's prema bhakti. Okay, so these two here, Kleshagni and Subhada, these are going to manifest at the stage of Vaidhi bhakti, but specifically when the practice is more solid, okay, or more fixed, then these things will manifest. And then in bhava, there's these 2 qualities, moksha, laguta, krit, and we're discussing these today. Reveals the insignificance of liberation and sadulabha, rarely achieved. And prema, it's further condensed, Shundara Atma Visheshatma, concentrated bliss, and attracts Krishna, Shri Krishna Akashin. So these are the further characteristics over and above what we just discussed in Anyavilasa to Sunyam. Rupa Goswami is given 6 further characteristics, so we get a really clear picture of what pure devotional service is. And it's very good for us because we can orient ourselves towards this definition. Yeah, and we can understand that we're making advancement if for example, if the complicated, entangling, difficult miseries that we have to face in this world don't really get us down as much as it used to before. Yeah, this is a stage of your devotional practice is very steady. Yeah, come what may, you always do your prescribed devotional activities. Say, some of you may have taken Diksha initiation, some of you may not, but you may have made vows of chanting. So devotees at stage of steadiness will always continue their chanting. And even if the ghosts of the past come floating up in the heart, then the state of steadiness means that you're going to continue with your devotional virtues and practice, regardless of what the ghosts of the past are, even if they're dancing, if it's dancing around in your mind. Steady, all right? So it's kind of inspiring. You know, we may not be at the stage, you may be, but if you're not, then we can, oh yeah, wouldn't that be wonderful? You know, to always chant my rounds, to always follow the regulative principles. Okay, so, and I'm going to quickly go through these because this is perhaps the most complicated, the most detailed one, in the most detail that Rupa Goswami explains. So that's why we kind of spent a bit of time on this. So I'm just going to, so 3 calls, I'll go through it quite quickly. So I don't want to give the same class we gave last week. We want to move on. So there's 3 causes of distress. You can see them here. Yeah, it's like a vicious cycle. Yeah. There's the unmanifest reactions, then they manifest. Then there's kuddam. Kuddam is an interesting word. I always like to mention it's kuddam means you may do a wrong activity, a sinful activity, and you may think it's all done with, but no, it will leave you with a seed of temptation to do it again. Yeah, kuddam. And then you're trapped in a vicious cycle, difficult to escape. Yeah, only when you make substantial stands against it. A substantial stand maybe will be taking up Krishna consciousness. Yeah, like when devotees take initiation, they, in front of everyone, the microphone gets put in their hand, the spiritual master's there. Often there may be many devotees there, and you say you go over the 4 regulative principles. Yeah, that breaks this cycle. Yeah. We're safe then if we're following these. There's lots coming up on this slide. Again, if you've got questions, if you just joined us, welcome. Hare Krishna. A few people just coming in now. Let me just, my things. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare-
I know this is a
Question,
question from last week, but
please, yeah.
I sorry, I quite probably did not understand it. So the 3 causes of distress are papam, vijam, and avidya.
Yeah,
So
correct.
papam, as I understand, is a sinful reaction, and it is of 2 types: apara.
Yeah, it goes in a seed and then it manifests. Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So what is the meaning of apararabdha?
Parabdha, I mean the Sanskrit breakdown of it.
Yes, so that I can understand the English as well.
Yeah, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, I'm afraid, so I cannot give any, unless any Sanskrit devotees out there can help us with this. But it's just easily put, it's the unmanifest.
Unmanifest. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
So
and then it manifests. So like you may do a wrong deed, and then the reaction will enter like a seed. Or the universal I, the all-pervading universal kind of consciousness or Krishna, so that then will be registered in your subtle body. Then in the future, often in the next life, it manifests. Okay, so that's aparabdha and parabdha.
So which one is unmanifest? Aparabdha is unmanifest and parabdha is manifest.
Yes.
Okay.
I hope that's.
And bijam is seed and kutam is.
Kutam means that's where it kind of leaves a trace of you. It kind of you're impelled to do the same thing again.
Okay, so it goes into our anarthas.
Yeah, it's all up. Yeah, this is all the definition of anarthas.
Okay. And falon mukham means we are already.
Means the fruit. Yeah, you're getting the fruit. Yeah, I think Prabhupada gave the example. One is born in one is entangled in legal
Uh-huh.
a legal mess, or one is very ugly, he said, or one is born in a very impoverished situation. I think he described something else. So yeah.
So this is where we are facing the music, right? The Falun
Yeah,
Mukham is.
that's a
Okay.
good way to explain it, the facing the music. Yeah.
And
Okay.
Aprabhrabda Phalam, that one means
The fruit,
it is
like
not.
Hala means fruit.
Oh, okay,
It means
so it
it
is
actually
yet to
manifests.
yet to manifest. Okay, okay. Thank you, Prabhu. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, and I'll go for all these transitions here. And then ultimately we concluded this all brings to light the indeed the amazing power of bhakti, that it can dispel even it burns everything, even the seed within the heart, to commit sinful activities. As one develops in their pure, as one makes progress in pure devotional service, they completely become free of this pap, even if in the seed form. Then this verse here, my dear Uddhava, just as a blazing fire turns firewood into ashes, similarly devotion unto me completely burns to ashes sins committed by my devotees. Okay. So, okay, I'm just looking. Okay, let's begin where we left off last week, and we gave a little introduction to this now. So that was Klesh Agni. And now we're going to do here, Klesh Agni. I don't know if anyone, I mean, it's nice if somebody can put their camera on. I've noticed everyone's, because I like to look at, when I'm speaking, I like to look at least one or two people so I can see the reactions. At the moment, everyone's got their camera off. Let me just look. Oh, no, that's it. I've got a few. There's a nice smiling face. Hare Krishna. Okay. Okay, thank you. So now is number 2, Subhada. So Krishna consciousness is all auspicious. Subhada means auspicious. So again, this will be manifest at the stage of Vaidhi, the stage of practice, yeah, Kleshakti, and then Subhada, yeah. So we should be able to kind of, existentially, we should be able to realize and understand that actually my life is becoming more auspicious. It's becoming more pleasing. We should be able to feel like we're going in a pleasing direction, or we're going in a happy direction. Yeah, we're going towards the light, and we're going away from confusion, darkness, depression, etc. Yeah, this means we're becoming more steady in our practice. Yeah. So a quote from Prabhupada here. I don't have the page number here, I'm sorry, but he says one should understand that he has not yet become steady in sadhana bhakti if he is not being freed from suffering and manifesting all auspicious qualities. All right. Now, it doesn't mean, now this is more of a deeper meaning to just the of what the material body has to go through. There will be suffering. I mean, even someone who's at the stage of steadiness, they have a birthday every year and they age. And there's certain consequences that come with that, regardless. Even Prabhupada, had to, he could say externally, he could say he was suffering from the trouble, but he wasn't. He was so absorbed in Krishna consciousness that it was just a side thing, incidentally. You follow? So when it says being freed from suffering and manifesting all auspicious qualities. Like Prabhupada was in a very difficult situation at the end of his life, but he was continuing with his Krishna consciousness. Okay. So now the definition of Subhada is also further mentioned by Rupa Goswami, that it must meet 4 criteria. I'm hesitating here because the slide is giving 3, and I'm going to mention 4. Okay, perhaps be more clear. So one is that it benefits everyone. Yeah. Everyone is benefited by a devotee's activities. Of course, demonic people may not agree with that. When they see the devotees chanting on the street, they may complain. I remember one time we was on Harinam with Mahavishnu Maharaj, and we went through a little alleyway near the temple here, and because the alleyway, it created like a nice sound, you know, like being in a music studio. The sound was like echoing off the walls, and all the devotees stopped there and banging the drums louder. You know, singing loud. This lady come out the shop. It wasn't. She wasn't very happy. Anyway, she had a discussion with Maharaj, and Maharaj took, you know, very humbly. Then he said, "Okay, sorry about that," and we moved on. But so. And it attracts, and we give examples of these. Rupa Goswami gives example of each of these. So it benefits everyone, it attracts everyone, and produces all good qualities. Okay? Yeah, actually, there is only 3 mentioned here. Yes, so possesses all good qualities, possesses happiness, number 1. Possesses affection for all others and is the object of all others' affection. Unfortunately, on the material platform, in this material world, generally we generate in our lives friends and enemies. Yeah, in normal material life, everyone's going to have persons they speak to and persons they don't speak to. Yeah, but a Krishna conscious person in a Krishna consciousness, we, by developing our affection for Krishna, we have affection and well-intentioned feelings for everyone. Yeah, this is one of the results of becoming conscious of Krishna. So affection for all others, and is also the object of others' affection. Yeah. Anyway, just and there's an example you can see there that I think Prabhupada gives this example. Can't recall if Rupa Goswami gives it, but Prabhupada gives the example of Lord Chaitanya. And can anyone say where he's dancing here? Anyone remember the name of the forest? Jharikand, yeah. Even now that forest is still there. It's a very dense, at least it was, very dense, big jungle forest, which generally people wouldn't enter into unless they had, armed guards. Anyway, we know the story. Lord Chaitanya was dancing in great ecstasy in this Jharikand forest, and he attracted everyone, and everyone happened to be lions, tigers, elephants. And amazingly, they was all dancing and chanting the holy name. Okay, we might not have that same effect. So we don't want to try and imitate that exactly. But that was the effect of Lord Chaitanya. So that's the same with devotee. Now, it may not always, this has to be understood. It's not just a superficial thing. In other words, sometimes you may take up devotional service and your parents or your friends may not really like you anymore. Or they may, they may not be pleased. But in the long run, But in the long run, you will see that when your life, if you continue with your devotional practices, only the most hardened, determined, demonic persons will always maintain a grudge or a dislike. But generally, people will always, I had it so many times, eventually the parents or whatever may be taken aback by your taking up devotion or your friends, but eventually they begin to appreciate. Yeah. So anyway, let's go on. There's the evidence given here. This is from the Padma Purana. A person who is engaged in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is to be understood to be doing the best service to the whole world and to be pleasing everyone in the world. In addition to human society, he is pleasing even the trees and animals because they also become attracted by such a movement. So Prabhupada is indicating there at the end, Lord Chaitanya in Jarikanda forest. Yeah. So we should have faith in this. We should understand this. Sometimes on the street, especially here in central London, I haven't seen so many lately actually, but often we would see, or you see persons representing different charities, you know, Amnesty or whatever, Save the Children, Save the Wows or whatever, and they, you know, and they're on the street and they have, you know, they're trying to, you know, and there is so many philanthropic activities in the world, doing good to people, so many charities, thousands of charitable institutions, but actually we should have the best thing, the best service to the whole world is devotional service. That's the best thing we could do for the world. Yeah, in its present precarious state, you know, the climatic issues of climate change, etc., the different wars. The actual only thing that is actually that can do the complete good is devotion to the Supreme. Yeah. Now there's a couple of things. Let me just a couple of things in the chat here. Karonika and Mirho, they write, sometimes I've felt that even in Krishna consciousness, one may have that affection for all living beings, but some may not, and the reciprocation is not the same. So one may feel disheartened. What to do in that instance? Yeah, as I mentioned, those who are demonic, because this world do have demonic persons, they will never be satisfied by the activities of a devotee. What to be done? Yeah, what can be done? Yeah. So there's no need to feel disheartened. We just have to go on with our devotional practice and understand sometimes we're going to meet very unfavorable people. What can be done? This is the nature of the world. Yeah, it's the nature of the world that we are in. But in general, like I can't help but think of when we go on Harinam here in central London. Practically 95% of the people, I would say, are happy to see us. Very rarely you're going to get someone who's antagonistic or will attack the Harinam or will, yeah, very, very rarely now. In the early days, it was very much there to a large degree, as I hear described by Prabhupada disciples, but you don't see it. So you can judge from that the general reaction of people, which is generally they actually like the devotees and they like the chanting. Okay, so, but you're going to meet some people who won't. Yeah, and another question here. At what stage of devotional service does the aspects of Shubhata develop? This is when you're steady. It's called Nishta. Okay, when you're practicing steady devotional service. you're steadily practicing the principles, you're steadily chanting your rounds. Yeah. And that's when Subhata will develop. Okay. Well, thank you for those questions. So in other words, Prabhupada would also mention, and Rupa Goswami says, that spreading Krishna consciousness is the highest welfare activity, as I just mentioned. Yeah. And there we have this quote that I just read. You know? And then Prabhupada gives the example again of Lord Chaitanya in Jarikanda forest. Now there's a verse that's quoted there as well on page 9. Yashasti Bhakti Bhagavati Kinchanai Shavas Tattasam Asate Surai Aribato Sukatok Mugana. And I forget the last line, but how do you, Yashasti Bhakti Bhagavati Kinchanai. So this is a nice, interesting verse. It's described that as we develop in pure devotional service to the Lord, then all the good qualities of the demigods come. Yeah, all the good qualities, because sometimes they have bad qualities. Here, the good qualities will manifest. Yeah. Yashastik Bhakti Bhagavati Kinchanai. Now, what that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that we should not care so much about developing these qualities, because it's all going to come down the line. There's no need to worry. And sometimes devotees may do, may not see it so important because I'm a devotee, so everything I do is right. It may not be right. The point I'm saying here is that we should know what the qualities of a devotee are, like to be humble, to be respectful to our seniors, etc., basic human qualities. And we should be trying to develop these. Now, they will actually become manifest as part of a persona completely, naturally, as we become free of anarthas, as we obtain and enter into the practice of pure devotional service, then all these good qualities will blossom, yeah, automatically. And in the meantime, we should try and act according to the principles of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. And now Danadas Swami is mentioning here, Danadas Swami, he's done a wonderful commentary on the Nectar of Devotion called The Ways of Devotion. So sometimes I refer to him. Now he mentions that Prabhupada is saying, or he's saying many people think that modern education is auspicious and endows one with good qualities. Yeah. So Prabhupada exposes this as a misconception. Okay, we're not against modern education, exactly. Yeah. But Prabhupada, but to think that education in of itself will endow one with all good qualities. And Prabhupada mentions on page 9, a Krishna conscious boy, even if he is not well educated, can immediately give up illicit sex life, gambling, meat eating, and intoxication. Whereas those who are not in Krishna consciousness, although very highly educated, are often drunkards, meat eaters, sex mongers, and gamblers. So according to our definition, that's not very auspicious. Yeah. I know, one time I was watching this theist debate with one well-known atheist. I mean, he's since passed away. Fortunately, I forget his name. But he was a big atheist preacher, and he would always come on stage or whatever he would come. He'd always come with a bottle of whiskey. So, and he was very kind of educated and very learned in many ways. Actually, some of the things he would say, it was quite obvious that he was not, had no intention of following any principles in his life. You know, he was quite degraded, some of the things he would say. So here's someone very educated. It was as if he had a photographic memory. He could recite poets going back 100 years, 200 years, so many things he would recite and come across as very learned, but his actual personal life was a mess, you know. So Prabhupada makes this point here, a Krishna conscious boy, even if he's not well educated, can immediately give up illicit sex life, gambling, meat eating, etc. Yeah. And then Prabhupada also has a little dig at yoga. Nothing against yoga, especially bhakti yoga. Nothing against yoga in general, but many people think that it's auspicious in one sense. It's, you could say it's not, it is in one sense compared to gross materialist activities. But Prabhupada says here, this is on page 10, artificially, one may sit down for so-called meditation, but immediately after their yogic performance, they will engage themselves again in such activities as illicit sex life, gambling, meat eating, and many other nonsensical things. But a Krishna conscious person automatically gives up all this nonsense and develops a high character. Yeah. So Krishna consciousness really pervades, actual Krishna consciousness pervades one's life completely. It's not just a bit of meditation in the morning, then we go on with our ordinary materialistic activities. So Prabhupada's kind of mentioning that here. I know one Mataji, she was here, and her mother was a Buddhist, and she was trained in meditation from a very young age, and she could quite easily sit for 3 or 4 hours and meditate. So quite an achievement. But then she felt, what else is there to do? Okay, I can meditate for 2 hours a day and 3 hours a day, but her life, you know, in association with friends and this and that was just the same as everyone else in a sense of intoxication, and you mean, you get the idea. So she had this, what's the point of it? And then she started coming to the temple and she understood the lifestyle of a devotee and the virtues they live by, etc. Yeah. So Prabhupada mentions that in page 10. So neither modern education or so-called meditation are all auspicious because they do not develop saintly character. Yeah, this should be the result of knowledge of all meditation or education, is that one develops the qualities of saintliness. Yeah, and that can only be done actually by the practice of Krishna consciousness. Now, and each of these, what we're describing, happiness will be spoken of. It's happiness to different degrees. Yeah. So just keep that in mind, because Rupa Goswami mentions there's 3 types of happiness. There's happiness from sense gratification. Can someone tell me from an earlier lesson, can give me a word, what's the problem with happiness from sense gratification? It's very...
Temporary.
Sorry?
Temporary.
Temporary, yeah. What's the word? Flickering. Yeah, chapala sukha. Thank you. Yeah, it's very chapala sukha. It's very flickering, you know, and then you're always looking for it again. It's very flickering. Yeah. So that's one type of happiness. Another type of happiness is that comes from moksha, or Brahman realization, and then a happiness that comes from devotional service. So of these, the happiness of devotional service is superior. Basically, one, because Let me just go to this next slide. One, because it's temporary. Yeah. It's whereas the other, yeah, it's eternal. Excuse me, the happiness derived from devotional service is eternal, but the others are temporary. Yeah. This. And Prabhupada goes on here on page 11. He mentions about the Mayavadis. They obtain, say they may obtain Brahman, where they realize the spiritual constitution of everything. Yeah, everything actually is related to Krishna. So Devahi Isha, Gunamayi. So everything ultimately has a spiritual aspect. Everything is the world and everything within it from a higher level of realization. And that's called Brahman realization, where you realize the spiritual essence of everything. And you therefore have no hankering and no lamentation. So even Mayavadis, some Mayavadis may obtain that realization, but eventually they will fall down again. Yeah, because of want of the shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. So it's not eternal, the pleasure of liberation. Okay. And Prabhupada mentions also mystic perfection. Just reading from it is page 11 and 12. Prabhupada then shows, you will see, he speaks about different yoga siddhis. And then he gives the material example of how these have been achieved materially. You can see that there. Flying in the sky, by entering into the earth. All this is being done. And it's basically, it's all temporary. Yeah, so-called mystic perfection. I just quote here, this is Prabhupada says in regards to sense gratification. Foolish people who are enamored of the glimmer of modern materialistic advancement are thinking that the Krishna conscious movement is for less intelligent men. I am better off being busy with my material comforts, maintaining a nice apartment, family, and sex life. These people do not know that at any moment they can be kicked out of their material situation. Due to ignorance, they do not know that the real life is eternal. The temporary comforts of the body are not the goal of life. Okay, so any moment, Prabhupada often mentions that you will get kicked out. Yeah. It may not be apparent to us this, that at any moment we will be kicked out. But the moment when we are going to be being kicked out, we will think, oh, now this is the moment I'm being kicked out. Say when we have to leave this world, you have to go. Yeah, it's all temporary. So in regards to sense gratification. And there's a quote from Lord Shiva here on page 10. See that there? My dear wife, a person who surrendered himself to the lotus feet of Govinda and who has thus developed pure Krishna consciousness can be very easily awarded all the perfections desired by the impersonalists, and beyond this, he can enjoy the happiness achieved by the pure devotees. So in other words, devotional service includes the happiness and more, but includes the happiness of liberation. And there's a quote from Prahlad Maharaj as well. Let's read this as well, page 13. It may not, you may have a different edition of it, or you may be reading online, but if you have the hardback copy, then on page 13, my dear Lord, I repeatedly pray unto your lotus feet that I may simply be stronger in devotional service. I simply pray that my Krishna consciousness may be strong and steady, because happiness derived out of Krishna consciousness and devotional service is so powerful that with it one can have all other perfections of religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and even the attainment of liberation from material existence. Okay. And Prabhupada also, I think, gives here 2 other references. A person, page 13, a person who's developed even a small amount of devotional service doesn't care a fig for any kind of happiness derived from religiousness, economic development, and sense gratification, or the 5 kinds of liberation. So you could say this is could be a test for us in our devotional practice, for economic development, sense gratification. It is stated, page 14, that as the personal attendants of a maidservants of a queen follow the queen with all respect and obeisances, similar to the joys of religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation follow the devotional service of the Lord. Okay? So I'm thinking of a conclusion here is that you have not got anything to worry about. Don't worry, by doing your devotional activities, everything is going to be very auspicious in our life. Yeah. Rupa Goswami is describing that in detail here. Yeah, again, it is stated as the personal attendants and maidservants of a queen follow the queen with all respect. Similarly, all religiousness, economic development, and sense gratification and liberation follow the devotional service of the Lord. Okay, that's why we try, and that's the best solution to the world's dire situation is Krishna consciousness. Yeah. You can read in Srimad Bhagavatam the description of when great kings were in charge of the planet. Maharaj Yudhisthira, the Lord Ram, everything is auspicious. Everything is supplied or everything is supplied that is needed to live a happy life. There's not too much rainfall. It only rains at night. Anyway, if you read further descriptions there, people don't suffer from all these horrible diseases. So that comes from Krishna consciousness. All right. So that is number 2. So now we're going to, any questions you can ask. Now we're leaving Sadhana Bhakti now. Everyone's ready to leave Sadhana Bhakti? No. Now we're going to Bhava Bhakti. Yeah, remember the first 2 are in relation to sadhana. Now these symptoms, it doesn't mean that the other ones go. These symptoms of bhava just get added on. Okay, so it doesn't mean your life is not auspicious anymore once you get to bhava. It just becomes more enriched, but how it becomes more enriched is spoken of here. So this is, now bhava we will speak about, we'll touch upon it today probably, but there's a chapter that describes about bhava. So we'll describe about that. There's Vaidhi, bhava, and prema. So the 3rd stage of pure devotional service, this is what manifests is moksha lakuta krit. Yeah, so moksha, as we know, means liberation. And it makes it seem insignificant. Yeah. And I think in this verse, in this chapter, there's many quotes you'll find, and in further chapters as well. As we progress through, you'll see many quotes are given to prove this point. Yeah. That moksha lakuta krit, it makes it seem insignificant. Lakuta means insignificant. Lakuta. So, yeah. Now, he's already mentioned, Rupa Goswami has already mentioned in the previous section 2 quotes. So don't get confused with this because it's relevant to both. Sudulabha and moksha lakuta krit. Remember, so one doesn't care a fig for any other happiness. Yeah. So this is also here. So these are appropriate for both characteristics. Now we'll discuss that more when we describe Srandarananda Visheshatma, and that's coming up. But for now, just take note of that. Yeah. So we have these. We just described these as well. It's same here. Let's just. Oh, that must be happiness from material enjoyment in that picture. Happiness with the Supreme and in Krishna consciousness. Now there's a quote here from Lord Shiva to Parvati. My dear wife, a person who has surrendered himself at the lotus feet of Govinda and who has thus developed pure Krishna consciousness can be very easily awarded all perfections desired by the impersonalists. And beyond this, he can enjoy happiness achieved by the pure devotees. Okay. So we won't read every quote there, but basically this is a symptom of the stage of bhava. One doesn't, even at the stage of sadhana, what to speak at the stage of bhava, one doesn't give a fig. One doesn't care a fig about the so-called allurements of the material world. Where if you think of our life or think of a gross materialistic persons, that's the only thing they're thinking of is the objects and the allurements of this world. People dream of the allurements that other people have. Yeah. For instance, I was seeing this advertisement for the oh, it's good. I forgot the name of it. It means forgot for the what's the name of when they where you can win millions of pounds if you get certain numbers, you know, what's it called?
National Lottery.
Yeah, the lottery, yeah. Thank you, yeah. And they advertise it, they have this finger, which is pointing over a Pacific house, you know. It's floating over, and it points to, it could be you. So anyway, everyone has this, perhaps, you know, this dream or maybe, and I mean, that's why they do the lottery, you know. It's so sad, actually, sometimes, you know, I was seeing a person, obviously the way they dressed, you know, they obviously wasn't very well off, you know, you can tell, and they probably didn't have much money, but they're hoping against hope for what? To have, you know, for material development. So they're filling in, scratching out the numbers on the lottery card, you know, hoping. But if there's someone who's Krishna conscious, the state of bhava, they don't give a, I won't say swear, they don't give a fig. They're so happy in Krishna consciousness. I remember when I was young, my father, once a week, he would sit down to do, because it wasn't the lottery then, it was called the pools. Anyone remember the pools, you know, where you guess what the scores are going to be for the football matches on Saturday, you know, and you can win lots of money. So it was like, when you sat down to fill in the pools coupon, it was like a big religious event, you know. You sit down in a chair and everyone had to be quiet, and it was like Dad will be in deep meditation, you know, circling these numbers, the hope, you know. But some of the point I'm making here is that this let's go here, let me just moksha lagudakrit. One doesn't care anymore about these things. One's happy. Yeah. One has happiness. One is deriving happiness from a superior source. So, in other words, again, the materialistic person is always dreaming of, yeah. So they can never find satisfaction in what they actually have. Always dreaming of something that they don't have. You know? But if we have our japa bag, if we have the Maha Mantra, we can be completely content. Yeah. All right, so that was moksha, lakuda krit. So now we're going to, any questions you can ask? Hare Krishna, we have 26 devotees with us today. Hare Krishna, it's really good. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Please, yes.
How is usually Aishwarya means wealth, but here you said Aishwarya means happiness in Krishna consciousness, which is fine if that is how it is defined. But usually in Sanskrit, Aishwarya means wealth. How
I
is it?
said Aishwarya.
It's said in the slide,
Okay, let me go back.
or maybe it is. I am reading it now. Is it Ishwarya? But
Aishwarya. Which slide is that? The one that's here?
the ones just before this. The
Aishwarya. Okay. I don't know. Again, you'll have to look at the Sanskrit terminology, but here it's translated as happiness derived from Krishna consciousness. Yeah, sorry, I can't give any more elaboration on that.
Oh, no problem. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sorry. But you won't be asked these questions when you have your little exam, the Sanskrit terms. Prabhupada doesn't give, if you notice in the Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada doesn't give a lot of these Sanskrit terms. He just gives a summary study and doesn't give the Sanskrit verses even. Yeah. So now, the rareness of devotional service. So this is another characteristic of bhava. An interesting discussion here. Why is it rare? Described here, unless one is attached, that's a stage called a Shakti. True devotion, one cannot attain bhava. And we'll elaborate more on these. Even if devotion is practiced with attachment, Krishna still does not give bhava bhakti quickly. Yeah. So it's very rare and difficult. So I've got to move my things. It is, so what's being described here, other than sadhana, we can, in a sadhana, you can choose to chant 32 rounds a day if you want. You can go to a japa retreat, perhaps, and chant 64 rounds. Yeah. You can read extra. You can attend different festivals, etc. There's a lot you can do to enhance your sadhana. You can have a determination of concentration to fix your mind upon the holy name. Yeah. But all that effort doesn't mechanically mean you're going to be given bhava. You understand? It's not mechanical. Spiritual life is not mechanical. It's not like if you go to a chocolate machine, you put in the money and you pull it and you get your whatever you want. Or you go to the shop, you give your money and you get what you want. No, it's because bhava is prema, but it's one ray of prema. So it's something that's gifted to you. It's something that's given. Yeah. So in that sense, it's not attainable by your own efforts, like the attainments in sadhana, as I mentioned. Yeah. You can do extra chanting, extra hearing. Yeah. So, and then there's a quote from Lord Shiva here. I don't think this is page 14. You may have some questions about this. There's one question in the chat. Let me just read this quote first. My dear Sati, if one is a very fine philosopher analyzing the different processes of knowledge, he can achieve liberation from the material entanglement. By performance of the ritualistic sacrifices recommended in the Vedas, one can be elevated to the platform of pious activities and thereby enjoy the material comforts of life to the fullest extent. But all such endeavors can hardly offer anyone devotional service to the Lord. This means bhava. not even if one tries for it by such processes for many, many thousands of births. So in other words, it can only be obtained if Krishna gives it. All right, so does that mean we shouldn't make an effort? What's the point of doing sadhana? No, because as sadhana develops, and as we describe that as well, and as our devotional service becomes more motivated by our experiences of devotion, then we'll attract the attention of the Lord. Yeah. As our activities become moved from Vaidhi to Raganuga, and consequently at the same time our heart becomes more pure, and the more we naturally yearn and we yearn and desire the Lord, then the Lord takes note of that. And that's why it said it doesn't quickly manifest. But then the stage, because there's 3 stages, sadhana, bhava, and prema. So yes, it's very rare, but it's obtainable by the sincere devotee who's practicing very sincere sadhana, very attentive and very sincere sadhana for a long time. Yeah. And then you'll be blessed by the blessings of the devotees and Krishna. One may be blessed to obtain bhava. But again, it's not within our specific demand. You cannot, you understand here? You cannot demand it from Krishna. Let me just, there's a question here from Bridgebrew. He's asking, how do we know that a devotee is a pure devotee, completely freed from the contamination of material desire? Well, one thing, he doesn't do the lottery. He doesn't do gross materialistic things. Yeah, they're fully engaged in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, even they may have a family, etc. But they're fully engaged in devotional service. So that's an obvious way. They're fully engaged in the activities of bhakti. But actually, if you just hold on, Bridge Prabhu, because Rupa Goswami, in the chapter on bhava, he describes, because generally devotees will keep their advancement a secret, yeah, or their taste. Generally, devotees will not advertise themselves. They may even speak of themselves as being materially detached or being materially attached. So it's very difficult. So we shouldn't be quick to judge devotees, because we may judge wrongly. Yeah. But then later on in the Nectar of Devotion, it describes the symptoms of bhava where that cannot be hidden. Because Rupa Goswami describes some people proclaim to be advanced and proclaim to have manifest symptoms of ecstasy, ashtasatvika bhava, tears coming from the eyes, rolling on the ground. So Rupa Goswami doesn't speak very highly of such persons. So then he gives 9 symptoms by which one can tell that bhava, or real devotion, has developed within a devotee. And these cannot be hidden. I'll give 1 or 2, for example. They do not waste time, is one. The first one's given. Yeah. So for example, if someone's professing to be in great ecstasy, rolling on the ground, and they do in India, you know, these bowls, they sing the holy name. And everyone's crying and everything like that. But then after the performance, they're reading the Indian Times. Or they're smoking bidi, or they're playing shuffleboard, you know, or they're playing cards, you know. Then in the evening, So they're wasting time, but someone who's actually Krishna conscious, they never waste time. Never waste those perhaps a little test for us as well. Are we wasting time? So just put that on hold for now. Bridgeru would describe.
Sure, Prabhu. Sure, thank you, Prabhu.
But there's the obvious ones, means they don't do the lottery, they don't do things like that. They don't sit down all day watching the television, they don't watch Monday movies, things like that. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, please, Mother. Yes.
One more question.
If you speak a little bit louder, Mother, or put your microphone closer if you can. Your voice is a bit faint.
I wanted to ask if Bhava Bhakti and the elevated stages can only be obtained. Of course, you have to have your own endeavor, but the ultimate result is through mercy. Is that something like that?
Yes, it's mercy. This is what is mentioned. This is what mentioned here. It is by the mercy of the Lord, or by the mercy of the devotees, or both. Yeah. It can come directly from Krishna. It can come by blessings of his devotees. Yeah. So yeah, it's like, again, it's not something that we can control, but we can act in such a way that we can get mercy. You see, we can act in such a way that we can invoke mercy from the Lord, that our activities should soften the Lord's heart. I mean, the Lord's heart is soft anyway, but our activities and our endeavor in sadhana should eventually attract the attention of the Lord. That's called bhava. When your sadhana and the sincerity of your sadhana and your practice attracts the attention of the Lord, then you'll get a ray of prema. That's called bhava. Yeah. Now there is a chapter on bhava, so we will describe it more. So now Krishna is reluctant to give it as well, because, can anyone say as well, is well known, this one's more well known because it's not by our own efforts, and because
It controls Krishna.
yeah, because pure devotion service controls Krishna. Yeah. Just like the same way Mother Yasoda, she completely controlled Krishna. Radharani completely controlled Krishna. The cowherd boys completely control Krishna by their love. So it has the power to control he who controls the whole universe. Yeah. Krishna controls the whole universe, is everyone and everything within the universe. But pure devotional service has the power to control him. So you've really got to you got to really kind of come up to the mark to be blessed with that. Yeah, you got to come up to the mark in regards to our sincerity and our determination to actually enter into this level. Now, Narada Muni, he glorifies Yudhishthira Maharaj to illustrate the power of devotional service to control Krishna. And he mentions about the Pandavas. This is on page 15, where their pure devotion obliged Krishna to become their menial messenger. Isn't it? We know Krishna went as a messenger, the last ditch attempt to convince the crazy Duryodhana not to have this war. Yeah, Krishna went as a messenger. And we know Krishna was a chariot driver of Arjuna. He was obliged. Why? Because of love. Because of the love of his devotees. Krishna is obliged to them. Yeah, Krishna cannot resist it. That's why it says, Patram puspam purumtayam yomai bhakti prayatiti tada bhakti uparitam asanami prayatmanaha 926. That Krishna describes, and one offers me with devotion, a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. Yeah. So, okay, that's at the stage of sadhana. Krishna is pleased to do that because we're following the instructions of our spiritual master. Anyway, so I'll just read from here. This characteristic of pure devotional pure devotion service manifests at the stage of bhava. So one can understand that the person cannot attain bhava bhakti by any path of self-realization, any other path. It's only by what we're doing can we attain such a level of attainment, such an attainment of bhava. So anyway, suddulabha, the rareness of pure devotional service. Sometimes this question is asked when we speak about this subject. Sometimes devotees feel disheartened. Oh, God. It says here it's very rare. What's the point? Little old me, little spirit soul, Mr. or Mrs. Insignificant, one of millions and billions of spirit souls. How if it's rare, what about me? Yeah. So utsaham nishtayat kama pavatana. You've discussed this in the Nectar of Instruction. No, we should hope. Although it seems hopeless, we should hope. Yeah, my Lord, I am your insignificant jiva struggling in this world of matter, but I have this hope, and this hope is keeping me alive. Yeah, we should develop this hope and this desire to obtain Krishna's lotus feet. We should never give that up. Yeah, okay, it's very rare. My Lord, it said it's very rare, but I am going to continue. You understand? Because sometimes the question is, devotees feel a little bit disheartened. Oh, what's the point? Well, that's the point. Are you really serious about our devotional practice? Do you really want this bhava? Do you really want to go further in your Krishna consciousness? Even though it's very rare, no, let me try. By the grace of my guru, by the grace of Prabhupada. This is why devotees were always in this mood of, my dear Gurudev, please give me your mercy. My dear Prabhupada. And that's what prayer is about. We should be praying, We come before the Lord praying. Never give up. Yeah. All right. And here's a quote from some evidence here. 5:6:18. My dear king, I think this is Narada Muni speaking to Yudhisthira Maharaj, if I'm not mistaken. My dear king, the supreme person, Mukunda, is actually the maintainer of all the members of the Pandava and Yadu dynasties. He is your spiritual master, worshipful deity, friend, and the director of your activities. To say nothing of this, he sometimes serves your family as a messenger or servant. This means he worked just as ordinary servants do. Those engaged in getting the Lord's favor attain liberation from the Lord very easily, but he does not very easily give the opportunity to render direct service unto him. Okay? So you can become free of sinful activities, no problem. You can just come to the temple and you can come for Tulsi Puja and you can circumambulate Tulsi, done, bang. All your sins are gone. You take Charnamrita, bam, gone. All your sins are gone. You hear Bhagavatam, boom, gone. But to actually obtain this bhava, where you actually control Krishna, where Krishna becomes controlled by your love, that's not so easily given. But Krishna does give it to his devotees. Yeah? So the more we become devotees, heart, mind, and soul, Krishna will give himself to us. Yeah. Not, yeah, okay. All right. Any questions there or comments? Again, if you've got some comments as well, or you can think of, you're quite welcome if you want to elaborate on any points, please do.
Prabhu. On Bhava Bhakti. So when we move from sadhana to Bhava Bhakti, it means like we are more attached to our sadhana and attached to Krishna basically towards when we moving to Bhava. And but still we have not reached to the prema that we are.
Yeah, I can explain is that sadhana, and this will be described a couple of slides on, but I'll bring it, you've asked a question. Sadhana, one generally does sadhana. Why do we do sadhana? Because we've been told to, isn't it? How many times have you heard spiritual masters are saying, read Prabhupada's books an hour a day and chant 16 rounds? Why do we chant 16 rounds every day? Because we've been told to. That's called sadhana bhakti. But when you don't have to be told, when you're inspired by the mellows of devotion to do devotion, that is no longer complete. That is no, that's now then you're entering into more spontaneous raganuga bhakti, where you're inspired by the devotional exhilaration. And that's why you're chanting, that's why you're hearing Bhagavatam, that's why you're attending the classes. Yeah. So that's the difference, the basic definition between Vaidhi and Bhava. So the second part of your question was?
So I assume that when you have, between Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti.
Yeah, Bhava and Prema, yeah. Now at the stage of Bhava, now there's different stages of Bhava, okay? So to begin with, the stage of Bhava, you're more or less liberated from the material world, from the modes of material nature. But there's still some things to overcome. There's still some obstacles by, say, it may be of offenses, there may be shadows of offenses to devotees. So it may still be there to one degree or another. Now, as Bhava intensifies, because Bhava means you're free. In other words, there's nothing holding you back to be fully absorbed in your chanting of the holy name. You've been freed from all of that. So you can happily swim around in the nectar of Krishna's name, fame, form, qualities, and pastimes. And as you advance in Bhava, you have a, it becomes you have a, what's the word? A inclination, or you're feeling a familiarity in a particular relationship to Krishna. It's becoming more tangible, your specific relationship to Krishna. But all the details is not given of Bhava. So Bhava is like, sometimes it's described when you're watching, you go to the cinema and you're watching a movie. You're identifying with the film, with the emotions in the film, but you are a person who's watching it. So that's a Bhava. One may have some attraction to a particular type of Krishna's pastimes and a relationship, but you're not actually taking part in that. So the stage of prema is when you enter into the film and you become one of the actors in the film. That's prema. Okay?
Yes, Prabhu, it makes sense now. Thank you. It helps. Yeah.
Bhava has, all these have different stages. Sadhana has different stages. Bhava has different stages, and prema has different stages. Yeah. And the higher levels of prema, then the material body is not equipped to handle it. Therefore, you have to leave this body to experience all the complete description of prema. All right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a big subject. Just touch a minute now. Okay. So let me just time check. Time check. 1:55. So we'll stop for, let's say, stop for 15 minutes at 2 o'clock. Okay. So let's go to number 5. So again, now this is the last two. So this is up at Prema. Okay. Chandrananda Vish Atma. Vishesh Atma. So again, happiness has been mentioned in all of these. Happiness is mentioned here, but it becomes more condensed to describe it. Incalculable. You cannot calculate how dense is the bliss of prema. Yeah, there isn't a calculator that you can measure it on. It's incalculable. So this is the 5th characteristic of pure devotional service. So good to note these 6 characteristics, because often a classic question. Please write down the 6 characteristics of devotional service. It's always a classic question. So this is the 5th, and you don't have to remember the Sanskrit. Yeah, if you do, it's fine. It's not absolutely required. So just move things around a bit again here. So, Hare Krishna. Yeah. So it's a stage of prema, incalculably condensed bliss. Now in the Nectar of Devotion, it's actually written as the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme. It doesn't mean Mayavad oneness. It means you become one completely in mood and interest, and your whole essence is completely with Krishna. So in other words, it's nothing can describe it, nothing can penetrate, just like nothing can penetrate metal because it's very dense, you know. Similarly, at prema, the bhakti or the bliss is so dense that nothing can penetrate it. No other perception of thought can even momentarily register in the mind. Yeah, there is no material mind anymore. It's completely spiritualized. You know, sometimes devotees, you know, sometimes we ask the question, yeah, but you know, if I go back to the spiritual world, say if I make the same mistake again, no, it's not possible, because it's so the meditation and ecstasy is so dense that no other perception comes into the mind. It's one, the love is so intense for Krishna that one is only thinking of serving Krishna. And interestingly, in that regard, about the danger of coming back to the material world, sometimes there's doubts there. I was reading recently that Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, why is there such doubt? Sastra says, tells you, Bhagavad Gita explains, once having gone there, no one's come back. So here, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur mentions that. Sastra is telling you, you won't come back. Yeah, that's side point there. All right. So once having gone to the spiritual world, you don't come back. And the reason you don't come back is because the relationship with Krishna is so dense, so condensed, that no other thought can enter. Okay. Now on page 15, there's a quote from Rupa Goswami. He's quoting, he says, Prabhupada's quoting Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami says that if Brahmananda, or the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme, is multiplied by 1 trillion fold, okay, 1 trillion fold. Now, happiness of becoming one with the Supreme is it's quite an attainment, but multiply that by 1 trillion, that cannot compare to an atomic fraction from the happiness derived from the ocean of devotional service at prema. Okay, so it's 2 o'clock now, so let's stop till 1/4 past or a couple of minutes after. Yeah, So we'll have a break now and look forward to being with you again in 15 minutes or so. Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Bol.
Haribol.
Please come back. Hare Krishna.
We will come back, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
Yeah, good. Hare Krishna, Murli Manohara. Haribol. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, you're muted. Murli Manohara.
Okay, thank you for telling me. I've just been speaking the last 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I'm glad someone noticed. Thank you. I could have been speaking an hour.
no problem. I thought you were chanting, so I was like just waiting for everyone.
No, no. All right, let me start again then. Okay. So Krishna, he's completely self-satisfied. A name for self-satisfied is Atmarama. Yeah. But he's not like an ordinary Atmarama. Yeah, he's Atmarama, but he's also attracted to his pleasure potency. And we just had Radhastami recently. So Krishna is attracted to Radharani, yeah, because she is the personification of the Hladini Shakti. Yeah. And thus Krishna is very much not just attracted, but he becomes controlled, yeah, by the Hladini Shakti or Radharani. Yeah. So the essence of this is, or the essence of Hladini, if you was to say what's the essence of it, is prema. Yeah. So if one has prema, they not only attract the Lord, but they also control him. That's how we can understand that this is not going to manifest as sadhana, okay, or bhava. This is at prema. Yeah. So bhava is pure, but it's not as pure as prema. Yeah. There's a whole discussion on whether bhava is discussed as a part of sadhana or is it a part of prema. In relation to prema, it's sadhana, but bhava in relationship to sadhana is pure. But in relationship to prema, it still has to go further. Anyway, so it brings Krishna under control. He, for example, you can make many stories there. Radharani and the gopis, Krishna becomes like a plaything, like a play doll. Yeah, and the cowherd boys can read that in the Krishna book. Yeah. Also brings his associates under control. There's a quote here from page 16, 17. So Narada Muni statement to Yudhishthira, let's read this here. So this is Prabhupada quoting here from the directly. So that was the position of the Pandavas. As though Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the greatest among all greats, he remained with those royal brothers, being attracted by their devotion, by their friendship, and by their love. This is the proof of how great this process of devotional service is. It can even attract the supreme personality of Godhead. Yeah. So I'm just thinking there's one verse, or one line of one verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Shama eva hi kevalam. Yeah. This is what we want to achieve in our life ultimately. Yeah. Okay. We have our children to look after, we have our houses to maintain, we have etc. etc. We have that, but ultimately, above all of that, our life will be successful if we can get the attention of Krishna. Otherwise, Shama eva hi kevalam. What's the point? Yeah. So what can attract Krishna's attention? Love. And ultimately, prema. Yeah. Now, when Rupa Goswami, he described the third characteristic of devotional service, that was Surdulabha. He, as we mentioned, he had mentioned that the Lord is controlled by the love of his devotees. Now, this one, Krishna Akashini, notes the same thing. It's the same thing. Now, Surdulabha manifests a bhava, and this Krishna Akashini manifests a prema. So we can understand that devotees' love controls the Lord in both stages. Okay. A bhava, that control is manifest in Krishna bestows love upon the devotee. That love begins to attract the Lord. Krishna gives it, and it attracts the Lord. Now, at prema, the devotee enters the Lord's pastimes, as we described. And then he attracts and controls the Lord in a very personal and active relationship. Do you follow that? That's the difference between this attracts Krishna at Surdulabha, at the level of bhava, and prema. So prema, one enters the Lord's pastimes and controls Krishna in a very personal, active relationship. That's with the Pandavas. Now, I just need to play a computer game now on mute. So I can hear. 1 second. Mute. Okay, it's all gone quiet now. Okay, so and then so that's why the example of the Pandavas is a given here as well, because it highlights that it's in a very personal and active way the devotee controls Krishna. Yeah, that they attract and control Krishna. Then we have a quote here. What is this? My dear Maj Yudhisthira, all of you, the Pandavas, are extremely fortunate. For the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, lives in your palace just like a human being. Great saintly persons know this very well. Therefore, they constantly visit this house. Now, sometimes we read this and but if you can imagine it, what would be can you imagine if Krishna decided to come and live in your house? Your devotion was so great that Krishna wants to come and live with you personally. That's pretty unimaginable to us or inconceivable, but that's how great is the prema of the Pandavas. Yeah. That's why great saintly persons know this very well, and therefore they constantly visit this house. So this is Narad, who's glorifying Maj Yudhisthira. And amazingly, one of the amazing qualities of the devotees that they think they have no devotion. As though they have all devotion, They think they have no devotion. So Maharaj Yudhisthira, he's moved in questioning and speaking to Narada Muni that he's begging for mercy from Narada Muni. Yeah, he's begging for mercy from Narada Muni, but Narada Muni is taken aback. But you, my dear Maharaj Yudhisthira, then he glorifies Maharaj Yudhisthira. And he's saying, oh, you're asking me for mercy? What are you? The Lord's living in your actual house. Yeah, the Lord's living in your house. So Sri Krishna Akashini, it attracts Krishna. Yeah. Bob said, God is great, but devotional service is greater than God because it attracts him. Just reminds me, sometimes Prabhupada speaks in the vein, he describes that, why become one with the Lord? Why do we want to become one with the Lord? When you can become better than the Lord, you can become greater than the Lord, you can become the Lord's mother, you can become the Lord's friend. Like that, Prabhupada describes in that way. Okay, so thank you, Hare Krishna. Okay, what I thought I'd do here, perhaps for just 10 or 15 minutes, because we finish at 3:30, and let's go into the second chapter. But I thought it might be good to have a look at the self-study questions from which your questions for next week's examination will be taken from, and just go over them, just so we're all quite clear. Yeah, is that okay? Would you like to do that?
Yes, Prabhu. I just have one question, Prabhu, on Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. Like when you're saying that at the stage of Bhava Bhakti, a Lord is attracted, and at the stage of Prema Bhakti, we enter the pastimes of the Lord. So doesn't it feel like there is a very big gap between these two stages?
In one sense, yes. In another sense, no. In the sense that meditation upon Krishna is absolute. And Krishna and all his energies is very much present within the meditation of a Bhava Bhakta. But the Bhava Bhakta cannot enter into an active personal reciprocation with the Lord in the complete sense of the Pandavas. So there's a big difference, but what the devotee Bhava experiencing is very profound, and they're realizing Krishna's name, fame, form, qualities, and pastimes, but they cannot enter it. And that's why at this stage which we'll speak about as well, the stages of Bhava, the last two stages is Esha Bandha, Samukanda. So devotees at this stage of Bhava, they desire, there's so much being revealed to them about Krishna, but they're not there with Krishna. So that makes them Esha, that makes them really intensely desire very intensely, Esha Bandha. And they, in their heartfelt prayers, my Lord, please accept me. You understand?
Yes, yeah, it helps.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Prabhu.
Okay, so 1 second, I'll stop sharing my screen and I'm just look at the self-study questions. So what I do, we can have a little bit of a quiz here. I'll ask the question, each one, and if any of you can know the answer, please you can unmute and or you can write in the chat. So the section 1, the preface, what does Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu mean? Anyone? Let's see.
Nectar of Devotion.
Yeah, it does.
The
Yeah, the nectar of the ocean of devotion. So Bhakti means devotion. Rasamrita, the mellows, the nectar, and Sindhu. So yeah, the nectar of devotion. Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu. All right? The nectar, Rasamrita of devotion, of the ocean of devotion, Sindhu. Okay, for who is Nectar of Devotion specifically presented? Yeah,
Person,
Krishna Gopaldas, yes.
thank you, Prabhu. Persons engaged in the Krishna consciousness movement.
Correct, yeah. It's not for the postman. It's not for the baker, it's for you. It's Prabhupada wrote it especially for his devotees. Then he's give the English words for Rupanuga. So Anug means Rupanuga.
Followers.
Followers of the in the footsteps of
Rupa
Rupa
Goswami.
Goswami.
Yeah, follow Rupa Goswami. Rasa,
Mellows,
mellow or taste. Chapala Sukha,
Flickering happiness.
flickering, yeah. Chapala Sukha. Bhoga. Bhoga means to,
the alternating sense enjoyment and renunciation.
correct, yeah. Bhoga Chag, yeah. Alternating between the both.
What was that again, Prabhu?
Bhoga, alternating, sense gratification, bhoga, and then renunciation. And then
Okay,
again, bhoga. So bhoga triag.
So could that be false renunciation?
No, that's another word. Bhoga means the alternating between enjoyment and renunciation.
Okay.
Yeah. You do something, you enjoy something, then you become tired of it. So you renounce it. Yeah, bhoga triag. Now, you could also, I mean, I haven't got the Nectar Devotion in front of me here now. I'm just kind of going on what I've read and I can remember myself. So you might want to also, you should also read through the preface, look at these questions yourself in your own time, just to make sure that that you've got the right answers, okay? So what is the universe, what is Lord Chaitanya's universal principle?
Whoever is engaged in the science of Krishna is also it's in a higher position than a person who is also born in a family of a brahmana.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some things in the chat. Yeah, the ocean. So yeah, it's to elevate everyone. Yeah, remember the example was given of Sakila Malik and the other name of Kasa, of Rupa and Sanatan. So this is the universal principle of Lord Chaitanya, can elevate anyone. Yeah, Krishna Gopal, you can, I can see you, no, you're okay. Yeah, it's, you can, the ones can raise their hand as well if they want. I see now, hope you just see the hand raised. So, okay, so that, where did, what is the example Srila Rupa Goswami set for devotees and for humanity in general? Now this, I read through this question during a little break there, and I couldn't immediately think of the answer here. I would have to look. I don't know, can you help us with this?
What I read is the example of distributing wealth for Krishna consciousness, relatives and husbands. That's
Okay.
what it says. This is the example that he has said. So
Okay, very good. Thank
I
you.
copied.
Yeah. So you will find it actually written like that, humanity in general. So the distribution of Krishna consciousness. Okay. Where did Srila Rupa Goswami first meet Lord Chaitanya?
Ramkeli.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Ramkeli. There's the analogy here. You may be asked this or you may not be, but it's a very simple one. Nectar Devotion will teach how to turn the one switch that will immediately brighten everything everywhere. So question could be, explain the analogy of one switch given in the preface. Then this is it here. Now the introduction lists the 12 rasas in Sanskrit or English. That's one slide you have there. There's 4 primary and 8 secondary. That's there, okay. You got it quite easily, it's there. We looked at it today briefly. Give the meaning of the word anusilana. Anyone can say what that is? Anushilana.
cultivation by following the predecessors, teachers, basically acharyas.
Anushilana means to follow.
No, yeah.
And specifically, we're following the acharyas, and therefore, as we discussed, there's a power there that we're linked up to Krishna. What does the word, the term Jnana mean? And Jnana means cultivation of Mayavad philosophy, specifically, or just knowledge for knowledge's sake. Jnana. Kamadi means fruitive activities. Yeah. And then we have the analogies here. There's two given here about the sharks. Makara. Can you remember that discussion? The sharks that dwell in the ocean do not care for the rivers which are gliding down into it. The devotees eternally live in the ocean of devotional service, but do not care for the rivers. In other words, those who are pure devotees always remain in the ocean of transcendental love and service to the Lord, and have no business with other processes, which are compared to the rivers that only gradually come to the ocean. So the question will be, please explain the analogy of the sharks. So there you have it. In the midst of the ocean, volcanic eruptions can do very little harm. Similarly, those who are against devotional service to the Lord have put forward many philosophical theses about the ultimate transcendental realization cannot disturb this great ocean of devotional service. Now, I found something it may be of value to you. I'm studying at the moment Bhakti Vaibhava. So Saturday and Sunday, I sit down like you and I have a 3-hour class in Bhakti Vaibhava. Actually, I had it just before this class. Today's a bit of a marathon for me. I have 6 hours. So what I do, I mean, we got the same thing. We got these self-study questions for each chapter that we study. So before, what I do as we go into each section, I find all these answers and I write them all down. You may have done that already. Then every day I read it. It's really easy to do. It takes about 10 minutes, sometimes a little bit more, 10 minutes less. So I've got the answer to all these self-study questions. Yeah, and I read over it once a day. I don't try and cram it in 1 day or 2 days. I just read it once a day. Well, actually, the last few days I forgot, so I had to read it about 10 times because I had an exam today, actually, Bhakti Vaibhava exam. So I read it 10 times yesterday. Just reading over it. And it's very good. Then it's very easy. Because the questions in your exam, as you've already worked out, comes from these self-study questions. All right, so a little tip if you want. Okay, chapter 1. List in Sanskrit or English the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. Okay, we just did that one. So we can say what they are. Let's go for the first 2. Let me look in the chat.
Kleshagni,
Kleshagni, correct.
Shubhada,
Yeah, Kleshagni means
relief from all material desires or distress.
Shubhada means
Beginning of all auspiciousness.
correct. Yeah. Second 2.
Reveals the reveals the insignificance of liberation.
Yeah, reveals insignificant liberation. And the next one,
Sudurlabha.
Sudulabha, very rarely obtained. Correct.
Yes.
Number 5.
Moksha Lagukrat.
No, that Moksha Lagudakrit, that was the name Sanskrit for the last one. But number 5, it controls Krishna. Is that right? Number 6, it attracts Krishna. Did I get that right? Yeah.
Sandharna Vishesh.
Sorry?
Oh, that's fine, Prabhu. I think
Okay.
yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
List in Sanskrit or English the 4 effects that are due to sinful activities.
Aprapta.
Yeah.
No, actually it's prarabdha, isn't it?
Will it be aparapta phalam kutam bijam phalonmukham?
That's it. Yeah.
Aprapta. No.
4 effects due to sinful activities.
Could that be put in the chat? Mataji, could you put that in the chat,
Yeah,
please?
we'll put that in the chat for everyone, Mother. Again, I'm doing this kind of, I can say, quite spontaneously. I would have preferred to myself to really go and make sure all the answer there. So just double check, please. Anyone studies that. Okay. Now, a list of 4 examples that Prabhupada gave of mature sinful reactions. Yeah. I mentioned them today, 1 or 2 of them. One of them is to become entangled in some legal things. He gives 3 more. One is
disease,
sorry,
chronic disease,
chronic disease, yeah.
and being born in a low and degraded family,
Yeah, you're reading directly from there, it sounds like. And
being ugly.
being ugly, yeah. Interesting. Okay. Prapendra, you have a question there? Your hand is there?
Yes, probably.
Please, yeah.
Like the question 1 and 2, do we have to learn all the Sanskrit as well?
No, no. It says all English. So best, unless you're familiar with the words already, I wouldn't attempt to learn the Sanskrit. Just learn the English.
So there won't the multiple choice won't be like the Sanskrit terms, will there?
Oh, you get multiple choice, do you, in your exam?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's a lot easier. That makes, yeah, it says there, it says list in Sanskrit or English, so you're not going to get extra marks for putting both. You got this, so it's up to you. You can put it in Sanskrit or you can put it in English. It's like your choice, you know.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, but in the multiple choice, usually we have both the Sanskrit and the English. So,
And then you choose both. Okay, so all
yeah,
right. So then
it's
you might,
together,
okay.
side by side.
Okay, so then you can, so that's good. I see where you don't have that in Bhakti Vaibhava. You just have the, okay.
So how they trick it is, they will write one English and another Sanskrit. So they will try to mess it up.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, but, yeah. So list 4, so we've mentioned that. What does the comparison between mystic perfections and modern scientific improvements indicate? Let's discuss that. I didn't speak much on that, but it's there in what we covered today. I spoke a little on this. What does it indicate? The comparison between mystic perfections and modern scientific improvements indicate. I think it's because it's all temporary. It's all been achieved. There's that discussion, isn't it? So-called mystic perfections actually are nothing. They're insignificant and they've already been achieved by scientific advancement. All right. But for more exact wording on that, you can read through chapter, you'll find it there in chapter 1. Now this one I couldn't understand. You can perhaps help me here. I read it through in that break twice. It says, so actually there is no difference between mystic perfection and materialistic perfection. A German scholar once said that the so-called yogic perfections had already been achieved by modern scientists, and he was not concerned with them. Why does Krishna really agree to offer a soul devotional service? So what I think's been done here, this number 5 is the answer to number 4. You see? I mean, I'm looking, I don't know if you're looking at as well at the actual handbook. But in the handbook, number 5 is actually an answer to question 4.
Yes.
All right. And the question for number 5 is actually here. Why does Krishna really agree to, let me share my screen. Share screen. Okay, you can see my screen now. Huh? Can you see my screen, everyone?
Yes, Prabhu, we can see your screen. Thank you.
You can see. So here, this is the answer to question 4. And this is question 5. All right, so a little mistake there. So the question is then, why does Krishna really agree to offer a soul devotional service? So we described that a few minutes ago. Because
Krishna can be purchased by devotional service.
because it controls Krishna. List the 3 sources of happiness according to the analysis of Rupa Goswami. We gave 3, yeah?
Derived from material enjoyment,
Correct, yeah.
derived from being one with the Lord,
Liberation, correct.
yeah, and being in the Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, and devotional service. And number 7, we didn't quite cover, didn't mention it exactly, but what is the meaning of the words Madan, Mohan, Mohini?
Get
Sorry.
It's Radhika. So one who attracts the one who attracts Kamdev.
You got it, yeah. Madana, Mohan, Mohini, one who attracts the attractor of Cupid. Okay. All right, so hope that helped a little bit. So let's go back, go into, excuse me. We did it. Okay, 1 second. Oh, no. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna. Okay, yeah, now, but there's one thing before we go ahead in this chapter, there's one thing I just want to highlight from the last chapter actually, which I didn't cover, but I want to just have a look at that. What is it described in this? Actually, sorry, it's coming up in this chapter now.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes,
Can you
please.
please also share your view on this open book as a question?
Yeah, just read it to me now, and I could give you. I mean, I can't write an essay here now, but I can give you some help of what you might write. Just read it for me, because now I'm out of that screen. Do you have it there? The essay question.
Yes, Prabhu. It's explain pure devotional service with reference to the Swarup and Tatastha Lakshan. Examples and Sanskrit words from the Nectar of Devotion introduction pages. And it's
Yes.
saying 7 marks for explaining pure devotional service, and for reference examples and Sanskrit words, 3 marks.
Yeah, so that's quite straightforward. This is all on the verse. Anya Vilasata Sanyam, Gana Kama Navatam, Kulina Krishna, Silanam Bhakti Uttama. So you're going to focus the essay on that verse and that verse alone, and just go through all the notes and the explanations of and you've got the slides there, which outline the Sarup Lakshan characteristics, which is the last 2 lines in the Tatashta. Yeah. So all these notes which you've got there from the Nectar, also directly reading from the Nectar of Devotion, then you're going to base your essay on that. That's quite clear, isn't it? Shouldn't be any problems with that. Okay, so I'll let you do a bit of homework on that one. So you just expand, you just describe about that. Anyabalasata Sunyam. Okay?
Sure. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, so now we're going into chapter 2 to 4. Now, Rupa Goswami here, he's going to explain the relationship of the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. Okay, so he's going to expand a bit more. So again, you've heard this from me a few times. 3 categories of devotional service. 1, sadhana, devotional service in practice. Bhava, devotional service in ecstasy. And prema, devotional service in pure love of God. And we've discussed the 2 distinguishing characteristics of each. Okay. And sadhana, again, is characterized by kleshagni and sadulava and subhat, auspiciousness. Bhava by moksha, lukutakrit, and sadulava, and prema, chandrana atma, visheshatma, and Sri Krishna Kashini. So a little step back into the chapter 1. Generally, it is understood that in the category of devotional service and practice, there are 2 different qualities. Devotional service in ecstasy has 4 qualities, and devotional service in pure love has 6 qualities. Okay. Now, here's a little nice picture describing this. Okay. Sadhana, bhava, prema. Okay, it's quite nice. Yeah, you can see it and perhaps relate to it. It might be a help to understand it more. So from kleshagni to Krishna Akashini, from sadhana to prema, includes all of these. Yeah. Okay, little. It's called a lion's glance in Sanskrit. Sometimes a devotee might be speaking or writing on a certain topic, and then he may finish the topic and go forward, but then stops and looks back like it's called a lion's glance. When the lion goes forward, he stops and looks over his shoulder. So anyway, it's Sanskrit, it's a lion's glance. It's a little look back. Okay. Now, this is what's the qualification for practicing devotional service. So Rupa Goswami's described what is the characteristics of pure devotion. Now he's going to describe what's the qualification for practicing what he's just explained. Okay, another word for qualification is adhikar. What's one's qualification to practice devotional service? If we think back to the preface and the introduction, we just mentioned that in a question as well, that Lord Chaitanya's principle is universal. So devotional service is open to everyone. Now, other processes, say, for example, there's some paths of Mayavad, there's some Mayavad schools where you cannot enter into the school or practice it unless you become sannyasi, unless you renounce everything, that you cannot actually take part in the practice. Yeah. But devotional service doesn't require that. It can be practiced by anyone in any of the ashrams. Yeah. And it can be practiced by a person who has material attachment also. Otherwise, who would practice devotional service? Yeah, just a few very rare souls. So, but the qualification is simple, that you're just attracted to it. That's why it says attraction to Krishna. This is the qualification that Rupa Goswami gives. You have you're attracted to the devotees. You're attracted to the execution of devotional service. That's enough. You may still have many things to overcome. You may have various attachments, etc. But amongst all of that, if somehow you have attraction to the prince, to devotional service or to the devotees, then you can begin. Yeah. Just like in our temple at the moment, we have a few new devotees who are joining us, new young devotees, and they're not coming with a clean slate, you know, but they're here because they're attracted, and now they're practicing devotional service. So that's the qualification. Now, for further stages in Krishna consciousness, your adhikar has to be raised to practice say bhava or prema or raganuga bhakti. You have to raise your qualification. That's why later on we will hear described there's the Kanishta Adhikari, the Madhyama Adhikari, and the Uttam Adhikari. So Adhikari means qualification. So there's different levels of qualification for different levels of spiritual or devotional practice. Yeah, but the initial qualification to begin is just that you're attracted to it. Now, generally, this attraction as described there in the Nectar of Devotion, it's generally going to come from devotional service executed in previous lives. I'm just going to see if the slide changes. Yeah. That's generally the rule, that your attraction is there because of some contact in a previous life. Okay, now that contact, this is known as Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. It may be unknowing. You've done a devotion, someone may do a devotional activity unknowingly. Say, for example, like we have a temple here is in central London. So every morning the postman comes, every 2 days the man comes from the vegetable market to deliver vegetables. And so, for example, the man to come to deliver vegetables, he's been delivering vegetables to us for over 30 years, you know. And whenever he comes, he looks pretty rough. He looks like hasn't slept for so long. He's really quite rough in his speech. He's a classic Londoner, mate. Classic Londoner. But he greets the devotees. He's been coming for 30 years, so he has a nice relationship with the devotees. And he's very friendly. So it's very doubtful he's going to he's going to take up devotional service in this life. But because of that unknowing credits which he's accrued by developing a relationship with devotees, by delivering vegetables, sometimes he gives us vegetables for free. That's called unknowing, for example, unknowing devotional service. So eventually that accumulates and it manifests as an attraction. Yeah. Any questions here, please feel free to ask. We're always open for questions. You can put in the chat if you like. Now, so this can sound a bit circular. Anyone knows what circular reasoning is? Okay, it's a circle, obviously, but it means, so we're saying one acquires attraction to begin devotional service, but one requires devotional service to achieve an attraction. Okay, so how does it actually begin? Well, basically it begins, I've already kind of mentioned it, by the causeless mercy of a devotee. So this mercy, one may unknowingly execute devotional service. That's also known as Agnata sukriti, unknowing devotional credits. So then one gets a slight taste, a little taste or attraction, we could say, to devotees, to bhakti, and then this grows, you see, and one engages in more devotional service. Yeah. Now, eventually, this will qualify someone for serious commitment to sadhana bhakti, but all started with initial attraction. We might have experienced that ourselves. We had an initial curiosity, an initial attraction, and then 3, 4, a few years down the later, we're taking, we're making serious commitment, yeah, by taking initiation. But it all started with an attraction, despite what might be the mess of our life. Within that mess, we were somehow attracted to the books, to devotees. So that's your stamp of qualification. You're qualified to practice devotional service. So this is in line with the universal principle of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So again, just to that point, that in other schools, it's not like that. In other schools in the Vedic context, you could say, or in Mayavad schools, then before you can practice it, you must, for instance, be a sannyasi, as I said originally. Or you may have to have a certain level of purity. But no, not in devotional service. All that comes, purity will come. Okay. Okay, here's a little bit of spiritual progression. Again, these are not my slides, so interesting pictures are there. So sadhana, practice, the goal is bhava. Okay. So I think Prabhupada gives the example there. Just like a baby, you see over here, it comes a little bit later, but I'm just remembering now, Prabhupada gives 2 examples. I think is there and there. Just like a baby cannot walk, but the inner ability to walk is there within the young baby. It just has to be brought out. So that's what Vaidhi or sadhana bhakti is. It brings out one's natural, spontaneous relationship to Krishna. That's what sadhana is for. So, and because it's in an inner day, it's the nature of the soul is to be attracted to the Supreme Soul. It's one of awakening what is already there. Like you can try and teach a dog to walk on 2 legs. Good luck. Yes, good luck. You will never be able to do it because the quality, because that inner day ability is not there within a 4-legged animal. Yeah, no matter how much you try. But every soul has a loving aptitude of devotion for the Supreme. It just has to be awakened, like here, the baby's trained here. They can eventually walk. So you could say this is sadhana, this is bhava, this is prema. Okay. Okay. Another example is given. It's just like to push start a car. I remember before I joined, I would often, the cars I had would be pretty rough. And oftentimes you have to push them to get it going. So when you jump start the car, you roll it and then you put it in gear, and suddenly you let the clutch out and it kicks in. So like that. So because it's there within the car's built like that, so it's going to come out. So the same way. Yeah. I remember one time I was with, I'm going to details. I had one. When I was in Europe, I was hitchhiking around, and this man, he always had to park his car on the hill because it wouldn't start properly. You had to roll it down the hill and start it. So anyway, sadhana, practice, sadhya, and then bhava. Okay. Prabhupada mentions that there in chapter 2. So we just back to this point. So devotional service, ultimately it comes from the causeless mercy of a devotee. Yeah. So one may execute devotional service unknowingly, then they develop an attraction and a taste. So this attraction grows. Yeah. Now, generally, this may occur over many lifetimes. Actually, this agata sukriti. Yeah, but it does occur. It does accumulate. Yeah. So generally, you're going to find it's mentioned more than once. Actually, eventually that. And it's not circular. It begins with the mercy of a devotee. Now, ruchi is this is a particular stage in Krishna consciousness. We have faith, then there's anatta nivritti, then bhajan kriya, practice, then it comes nishta, then comes ruchi. Yeah, and we'll discuss these different stages. I gave the beginning stages there. So ruchi is there in the beginning stages. Otherwise, how could we kind of make a commitment? Yeah. So attraction also can be here. Attraction actually means a taste. If we further qualify attraction, it means you have a particular taste. So let's speak of it as in the context of a taste. Yeah. So let me just read from here. Attraction or taste is the qualification for making a commitment to the systematic cultivation of sadhana bhakti. However, there is no qualification required for receiving causeless mercy and beginning agata sukriti. All right, that's clear, yep. So to make further advancement means you have to have adhikar. But to begin, just by the mercy of a devotee, you may accidentally or unknowingly engage in a devotional act. You follow that? So there's no qualification for receiving in causeless mercy. That's why it's a causeless. Yeah. But it was Prabhupada's grace he installed Radha Londoneshwar in central London. And this man who works at the vegetable market, a very common, ordinary person. You know, what's he done? Yeah, what's he done specifically? Perhaps he's not done anything. It just so happens that a pure devotee has established a temple for getting agata sukriti. So press the button here, see what happens. Yeah. So spiritual advancement again. It's yes, please.
Sorry, Prabhuji, your mic from my end, it seems like it's ruffling.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening there. Is everyone else is hearing the same? My voice is not coming through very clearly.
It's okay now, but it does it like intermittently.
Okay.
Okay now.
It must be the internet connection. It's coming and going. Yeah. So this highlights a very wonderful point, is that any spiritual progress we make, we could say spiritual advancement, it's eternal. So it remains in one's heart for future life. Whereas everything, as we've already discussed, Chapala Sukha, so-called rasas or the so-called engagement material, everything is very temporary. And everything you accumulate in this life, you're going to lose it. Okay, you may build, you may live in a very luxurious house in this life, but in your next life, even if you're blessed to take birth as a human being again, and you have recall of your previous life, if you go to that house and claim it as yours, no, everyone will think you're a mad person. No, you lose it all. Yeah, you lose it all. Yeah. But any attraction to Krishna, then you never lose it. So that's very encouraging, isn't it? Anything that we've done, all the spiritual activities that we've done, it's never going to go, never. Now, due to offenses, it may get covered over for some time. That's another subject. And one may not be able to continue with the practice or execution of devotional service, yeah, for some time. But Krishna is still there. Yeah. So it remains in one's heart. Yeah. Now, it manifests again by the association of devotees. So then one takes off the practice from where they left off. Okay. And this we see practically. We see devotees joining or taking up from previous practice in previous lives. So some of them may be more practiced or more advanced from a previous life than other devotees. Yeah. So for some, they may just come in straight at the higher levels or the beginning stages of bhava, but they have a natural ease, a natural happy, spontaneous attraction to hearing and chanting. For others, it may not be like that. It may be they, for a good few years, they're very unsteady in their chanting and their following of the principles. Yeah. Others, it may not be like that. It's all because of previous practice. Yeah. So in other words, we can see devotees coming in at all different levels of advancement. Yeah. Now, everyone, for instance, in a temple, it's not as if we sit devotees down and we try and analyze what stage they're at and then we engage them. No, everyone will go through to be taught the principles and the culture and the etiquette and the base, and everyone will have to do kind of Bhakti Shastri, like that. But internally, some will find these things easier and more natural, and some others may not. All right. Now we're going to, okay, here. So what does this practice mean? And how does one move from sadhana to bhava? So we had that question, that curiosity, when we speak about bhava. It's always a question that comes up when you speak about bhava, is how to get it. Does it sound so attractive? Yeah, so it's a good question. So, excuse me. So, again, the qualification for sadhana depends on the strength of one's taste or attraction to Krishna. So now we're speaking not the qualification for coming, but the qualification for executing. Will depend upon one's taste and attraction to Krishna. So the more pronounced the taste, the better the qualification. So page 19, Rupa Goswami says, the person eligible for Krishna consciousness by devotional service can be classified by his particular taste. So it's not based on intellectual abilities, all right? Not like in the material world, where at a university or college or whatever it may be, your advancement in that school is based on intellect, your ability to remember. Yeah, it's based on the spiritual life. It's not like that. your advancement is based on your taste for hearing Krishna Katha. Yeah. What are you feeling when you sit down to hear a class? What is it that, what is it that attracts you to sit down to hear class? Yeah. Now, what is it that inspires you not to hear a class or to miss a class? The lack of taste. Yeah. But the more taste we have, then the more we will be like bees looking for the honey. The more taste you have, we want to hear. Yeah. So that will indicate a level of advancement and nothing else. Yeah. Doesn't matter if you're wearing saffron or whether you got saffron or whether you're working at the post office and you've got 3 children. Whatever your situation may be, inside the temple, outside the temple, your advancement can be judged by your attraction for hearing about Krishna Katha. Yeah. So Prabhupada says again on page 19, for persons who have a natural taste for understanding books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is easier than those who are simply accustomed to mental speculation and the argumentative process. Yeah, I'm just picturing of sometimes, we have some persons come to the temple. I know one devotee. He's initiated now. I won't mention his name, but when he was first coming to the temple, he was asking so much. He was speculating and asking so many argumentative questions. Actually, I think we had to ban him a couple of times. It was too much. It was just came for arguing and speculating. Didn't come for hearing. But anyway, he got purified, and now he's an initiated devotee. But in the beginning, he was definitely. It wasn't possible for him just to come in and sit down and hear. It was so much mental speculation. But eventually he got purified, and now he's initiated, and now he happily hears rather than mental speculates and argues all the time. Yeah. So persons who have a natural taste for understanding books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is easier. Those who are accustomed to mental speculation, the argumentative process. Okay. Now here, how does one move from sadhana to bhava? We have spoke on this. So we're engaged, Atashi Krishna Nahamadi. We engage ourselves very sincerely in the activities of bhakti. Yeah, with our mind, very sincerely trying to control the mind, keeping the mind chaste, keeping it focused on devotional thought. Yeah. So this will cause.
Prabhu,
Yes,
I have
please.
one question. I
Please,
read
ma'am.
this slide before, meaning right now.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that it says one particular type of activity. So
Yeah.
there are many of us who are, especially in a small congregation, who are trying to do so many things.
Yeah,
Because
imagine.
obviously there are not so many hands. So that is not the right way to improve our bhava, right? We should focus on, I like to do this for Krishna, and Krishna wants us to do this for him, and develop that. Is that right?
Well, whatever, in a sense that we should be engaged, and there's multiple varieties of engagement in devotional service. So that's the means of advancement, is for your senses and your mind to be actively engaged, whether it's in one particular devotional activity or it's in many. We have Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. So it's not necessarily indicating here that you should just strictly only do one specific activity. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Your sense, but okay, you mentioned you're engaged, very busy. We all got different, but that's the point. You're engaged in the activities of bhakti, and it may be in a variety of ways. and that's good. The point here is your senses should be engaged, whether it's frying samosas or on a Sunday, or whether it's organizing a big festival or organizing Rath Yatra, where you're involved in many activities, cooking, marshalling, or whatever you're doing, you know. For our senses to be engaged, you know, making samosas, distributing books, making garlands, you know, like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's what will cause this dormant capacity to be invoked. Now the word bhava is used here, they put in the slide. So that's quite a generous word here, because it's the actual stage is another conversation. So by that these activities will invoke your capacity, your attraction. And Prabhupada says these practices will help one become cured of madness. So Prabhupada describes that, yeah. The moment we're mad, we're maddened by the material world. So instead we become mad for Krishna. So now the essence of sadhana, actually, so what's the essence? When there's many activities in sadhana bhakti, and we will be looking at Narada Muni, Rupa Goswami will describe all the activities that a sadhaka does and a Raganuga Bhakta does. But of all the different rules and regulations, of which there's many in Krishna consciousness, ultimately it's all meant to help us to fix our mind on Krishna. Savai mana Krishna pada vindayo. Yeah. So now the Muni is quoted here and says here, page 21. Now this is interesting because Narada Muni, he's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he gives credit and praise to, of all persons, Shishupal and Kamsa. Yeah. In his humility, he puts Shishupal and Kamsa as being better situated than himself, Narada Muni. Why? Because they fixed their minds on Krishna. Yeah. Now, as we've already described, this wasn't favorable devotional service. It doesn't come under the context of Uttam Bhakti, because their mood was not favorable, as we understand. But Narada Muni takes the principle, the essence of Krishna consciousness, and sees it in Kamsa. As you know, Kamsa could not but think of Krishna 24 hours a day. Why? Because Krishna was going to kill him. Yeah. Fortunately, hopefully, that type of thing will never be upon us. But can we imagine for 1 second, if we was told, you know, if you was told that a hitman's coming to kill you, and this was serious, you know, someone's coming to kill you, would you be able to sit peacefully? You wouldn't. You'd be constantly thinking in great fear. So that was Kamsa. He was constantly going over his mind. Krishna's going to kill me day and night. Bhagavatam gives elaboration on his meditation. And Shishupal as well was obsessed. He was obsessed with Krishna. He hated him so much that he couldn't get Krishna out of his mind. Yeah. So they had, because of that, they achieved liberation. Not liberation as in Goloka Vrindavan, but they obtained liberation other still. Yeah. So in other words, this is the essence of sadhana, because it's by fixing our mind, then we get purified. If you don't fix our minds on our japa, we don't fix our minds upon the activities of bhakti, you will get purified, but it'll be a slow boat. You know, this slow boat to China, very slow. And in the meantime, you may get distracted by your previous attachments. So it's this, we have to learn to fix our mind. Wherever the mind wanders, due to its unbridled state, wherever one wanders due to its flickering nature, one must bring it back under control of the self. So this is the essence of sadhana, is to fix the mind upon Krishna. And that's the effort we have to make. Yeah. Krishna's not going to do it, we have to do it. Yeah. We have to make the effort, and then Krishna will help. Yeah. So a guru helps his disciple in this process. So that's mentioned there, page 21. And elaborated upon, the best type of sadhana is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, so what I do, I think we can stop there for today, because the next slide opens up this subject. 2 types of sadhana bhakti, okay? So Raganuga, sadhana bhakti, and Vaidhi bhakti. So we'll open that discussion up next week and we'll discuss that, okay? So we'll stop there 3 minutes early. I hope that's okay with everyone. And I hope it was of interest today. And I hope I managed to keep your attention. I mean, I know what it's like because I'm studying Bhakti Vaibhava. To keep the attention for 3 hours on a computer screen, it's not always so easy. So I hope you did your best in that regard. I managed to keep your attention. But thank you, everyone. And next week, is Padmanabha Nityananda here? Or any of one from the... No, I don't think so. He's not answering. But next week, I think you have, is it half an hour, isn't it? You know what? You have a...
Usually half an hour, Prabhu.
Yeah, so that will be in the beginning, then we'll continue straight after that, okay?
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone, for your very kind attention. Look forward to being with you next week, okay? Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, I'm going to
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Red button. Hare Krishna.